we're going to sustain this philosophical and political engagement, not only because we love the subject matter, but also because we love each other. Simon Critchley is one of those philosophers whose work I read regularly and religiously. You come across an author, it could be Eric Auerbach in literary criticism, or M.H. Abrams, or Harold Bloom, or Edward Said. It could be Muriel Rukeyser's poetry. It could be Toni Morrison's novels. You choose certain figures to say you're going to read everything they produce. Why? Because it allows you to undergo your endless paideia, that deep education that forces you to wrestle with your soul, to engage in that kind of soul turning that Plato talks about in the middle of the book, in the middle of the Republic. It's a way in which everything is at stake in what they are writing. So it's not academic in the worst sense. It's intellectual in the best sense. And what I love about Simon Critchley is he does, in fact, take very seriously my two primary traditions, which is the Socratic legacy of Athens and the prophetic legacy of Jerusalem, and he dips it in those who are attempting to struggle against, resist, be resilient in the face of structures of domination and various forms of oppression, which is to say, what is so rare, and this is what separates certain thinkers. He begins with the catastrophic, like Benjamin, like Du Bois, like Kafka, the first line of the Metamorphosis, catastrophic, transformed into a huge, vicious, ugly vermin. But usually, philosophers, critics are so deodorized, they don't want to deal with that kind of funk. They want to stay on the surface, maybe get to the problematic. No, we begin with the catastrophic, which is very different than just the problematic. And that's one of the reasons why his response to the starting point of most of the kinds of philosophers who I tend to be attracted to. They begin with line 607b of Book 10 of Plato's Republic, the traditional quarrel between poetry and philosophy. And he decides to engage in a form of philosophizing that goes to school with the poets. Because usually it's the poets, and by poets I include musicians. Beethoven called himself a poet of tones. John Coltrane is a poet of sound. So we're including poets in the broader sense, the way Shelley understood it in that last line of the 1821 pamphlet, Defense of Poetry. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. And he wasn't just talking about versifiers. All human beings who muster the courage to have imagination, to conceive of a different world and use bits of this world to attempt to transform the present world into something in light of that world you imagine. So it's a primacy of empathy and imagination in that sense. And this is very rare because most of our philosophers since Descartes have gone to school with science and mathematics. It's the difference between Vico and Descartes. Vico begins with corpses, humando, where our word humanity and humility come from. What does it mean to be human? Burying, that's what humando means in the Latin. You begin with the corpses, which is even more concrete than Heidegger's beginning with death. Death is too abstract for a brother like me. I'm with Bootsy Collins and George Clinton. I begin with the funk. And corpses stink. But there's also deep love and freedom in that funk. We'll get to that later.